building brand loyalty through personalized mobile experiences. For that, I would request Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Chief Marketing Officer, Home Credit, Mr. Avi Kumar, Chief Marketing Officer, FNP, Nilima Burra, Chief Strategy Transformation and Marketing Officer, Luminous Power Technologies, to please come and join us. And to chair the session, I would request to Prashant Puri, CEO and co-founder, AdLift, to please join us. And he is here with us. Can we give a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen?
Great to be here. We have a star-studded panel over here, so lots of insights and data within the direct-to-consumer B2C space from the CMOs over here across a pretty varied space, right? So we've got Nilima, who's Chief Strategy at Luminous. We've got Avi, who heads up Ferns and Petal, and then we've got Ashish from personal loans, home credit space. So a very varied space. And here we're talking about brand building and mobile experience, right? So just looking at some data points, we're at about 1.19 billion mobile users, out of which smartphone is actually staggering. It's about 650 million. And I was just looking at growth rate and comparing it to other countries. For the last 5 years, we've been growing at about 15%, which basically means if your CAGR is 15%, every 3.5 years, you're doubling the growth, right? So 3 years ago, which is not very far, we were sitting at about 300 million smartphone mobile users. Today, we're at about 650. So that's huge. With that, I want to kind of get the panel's information and thoughts on, in the last 3 to 5 years, like how have you seen mobile experiences relating to customer experience change? Like how has it evolved? Ashish, we can start with you and then Avi and Nilima.
The name A doesn't leave me here. Always get caught first. Okay. So I think, Prashant, if you look at, like you rightly said, the India's entire onboarding on mobile has happened very, very rapidly. Three major drivers. One certainly is the ubiquitous network. Second is the device cost. And third is also the need for computing. Okay, whether it is for educational or whether it is for anything. What it has done to us is that, I mean, we were one of the last countries to get onto mobile, and sometimes being last is also, I mean, it's not such a bad thing. And in that sense, if you look at in last 5 years, suddenly when we used to talk somewhere around, and I think one of my assignments was, I used to work with Nokia in one of my assignments early days, when the mobile became the household equipment to now today, you have a dual SIM and dual mobile kind of a scenarios. You have more than one mobile, almost about some 17 odd % of our consumers have more than one mobile. Now, if you look at the consumer experience side and the driver for the organizations, I think it's about, for any organization today, one of the primary screens for consumer being the mobile. I mean, organizations are able to drive the kind of a connect you want. You can have individualized conversations with the individual. It also provides, because if you have a 24/7 connectivity, I mean, mobiles, so much so, even if you are not using, if your network goes awry, you will be probably in a tough spot at that point in time. So I think from that perspective, it is the individualized approach which is being taken now for the organization. Mobile also provides the individual identity. I mean, you can forget your wallet, but because of the Indian stack, which is your Jandhan, Aadhaar and mobile, which is the JAM stack. JAM stack gave you an alternate identity, including a wallet. So it's not only your physical identity, or a digital identity, it's also your financial identity, and which is one of its kind in the world, your UPI. I mean, how many times do you go around giving money? And because of all of this, you generate a trail of data, which for marketers is a treasure trove. For example, in my case, I am providing personal loans. I am being able to underwrite a consumer basis only about 2 documents. One is Aadhaar, one is PAN card. If he is applying using a mobile, anywhere in the country, in the places where we operate, in like 6 to 8 minutes, I'm being able to onboard, process the money back into the account, which if I would have taken a paper trail would take me around 15 days. So look at the kind of a timeline you can squeeze only because of I can identify a consumer individually, and also I am being able to wrap around the entire data sets around that consumers for not only for personalization but also for the application purposes.
Avi, your thoughts on the evolution of mobile experience last 3, 5 years?
I think so. A marketer is where the consumer is. And if we look at the room, we look at India, all of us spend maximum amount of time on our mobile phones. And thus, it becomes very important to understand that a mobile phone experience becomes very, very important for any brand. And also, how do you reach out to a customer, consumer through different channels on mobile also is very important. Uh, we have to, what has happened is that mobile has become beyond a channel. It has become a device to connect with the customer. And that is where you become not just a part of the transaction for the customer, but you become a part of their daily lives and their daily journeys. I'll give you an example from our brand FNP. So while yes, when a customer wants to send out a bunch of flowers, they would come to the app and they would go to the M site and they would order. However, we also interact on a daily basis or on a weekly basis with them with what could be most relevant for them through the day. So if today is say girlfriend's day, then it would be a good way to remind somebody about their girlfriend that you know what, it's
Or,
girlfriend's day.
or if you don't have one?
The worst part is if it is your ex.
Yeah. Or or to that extent, how is it that you could this was on an occasion. There can be also a lot of personalization that can be done. It is a very, again, a marketer's dream is to be hyper personalized in terms of their communication. A mobile device is as personal as it can be. Only you have the access usually to your mobile phone, and thus, the overall approach could be much more hyper personalized in terms of communication. So those are some of the things that have happened. Also, seamless integration. So we spoke about UPI, we spoke about the payment modes and so on and so forth. How is it that through the mobile experience itself, how is it that it could be a seamless experience from discovering of the brand to purchase and then post-purchase experience also, all completed into the mobile phone itself.
And I remember, 5, 6 years ago, on specific categories, if you were talking about and on mobile, you used to wait till you went to a desktop and then finish the entire journey. Whereas there are certain categories where, with all the integration, with the way the mobile app experience has evolved, that you're like, you know what, I want to actually buy my airline ticket on the app versus struggling with desktop because it's just so much easier. So we've seen conversion rates for specific categories actually increase on mobile, where you used to have discussions 5 years ago कि mobile तो obviously कम ही conversion rate होगा, traffic आएगा but conversion कम होगा, and now it's kind of flipped over.
Yeah, and also very impulsive buys, right? That happen on mobile phone. It may not be a planned purchase. You may be going through your Instagram, you may be going through some other medium, consuming some content, but something came up which was very relevant, and you go into another loop of looking at the products, purchasing those products, and before you know it, you have things coming your home.
The biggest difference, if you look at, if I were to put it this, desktops and laptops are for browsing, mobile is for snacking. So typically you end up doing more snacking than you actually eat. So
Nilima, your thoughts?
I think pretty much a lot has been covered, but two things which was coming to my mind from technology point of view. AI has been another big change which has been seamlessly now integrated with mobile. You could never think of that. You always thought AI separate as a world, desktop separate world, and then mobile as a separate thing. So now all these things coming together, I think that has made life even more intuitive, even more personalized, contextualized, which wasn't there earlier. One more thing which I see from business point of view is the real omni-channel experience. While we always talked about online to offline, Uh, but it was actually never online to offline because phone never supported a lot of those things. So with all these transactions, integrations, payment gateways, you're shopping offline and then you again get the payment link online on your phone, and then you're able to straddle two worlds so seamlessly is one of the big experience. And that has led to actual seamless journey for consumers when it came to omni-channel experience. So these are two things which I feel. Third thing I also feel is management solutions, services as a solution or solution as a services has become more possible because there is better integration with mobile. And I can tell you from my industry example, we used to sell inverters and batteries for long, solar used to be another one. But with app solutions, which is now on the phone, there is a panel which is on the roof, there is a meter which is sitting somewhere near your stairs, but you're monitoring the consumption on your phone. So now this kind of integrations we wouldn't have thought if there was no mobile.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And taking a segue from that, Nilema, your thoughts on when you're creating these personalized mobile experiences, what data sets or data points are most valuable to you in creating that for your customer?
That's a great question because what this all journey does is brings data in center, which is the biggest currency available. What all information from demographic to actually real usage patterns and behavior, which comes on your way. Of course, you have to be respectful of the privacy and the policies around it. I can tell you how it has changed from data point of view, and I was just talking about this app. So we have something called ConnectX app, which connects consumption pattern of energy generated through solar. Now, while this is giving you consumption, it's also telling you how you can use that energy better and manage the resources better. Now, this we are able to do because we are studying the pattern of what is your consumption behavior, usage, what kind of usage during day or night, and then give you prompts, give you feedback, help you monitor it better, and then utilize it better. So this feedback, this looping back with your personalized notifications, reminders on how you can manage energy better, all these things is through the data. Second thing which I also feel is the hyper personalization because of the better management of data thereon. Of course, with consent. But that data, when you further do propensity modeling, with which areas there is higher power cut, which areas are lower power cut, and you're able to see that with the energy consumption, now you have got great content actually possible with the marketing campaigns which you are doing because of the personalized data. So contextualizing is far better with the data management solution on that.
Avi, your thoughts on what data points are critical in personalized messaging?
So I would classify into behavioral and contextual. So behavioral has a lot to do with what your, what are the signals that you give to the platform while you're browsing. What is the channel that you've come from? Are you on a Wi-Fi? Are you on a, mobile network? What are the products that you've bought in the past? What are the categories that you've interacted with, so on and so forth in terms of the recommendation. But also what is very important is the context. Because while you may have interacted with, Rakhi hampers in August, it doesn't mean that I kind of recommend the same to you around Valentine's Day. So context is super important along with the behavioral, signals that are there. So right timing to the right messaging. So these are the two data points that we use and combine them together to make personalized communication for the customer. And for us, because every customer is unique, their occasions in terms of birthdays, anniversaries, and other milestones are different. Hence, even more important to make sure that you are giving out the right message at the right time.
Makes sense. Mr. Ashish, your thoughts on what data, being very
Okay.
into data?
Data everywhere. Okay. Let me ask the audience one question, okay? All of you use mobiles? Am I right? Anybody who doesn't use? Okay. A tough one, yeah? A lot of us might have more than one. How many sensors are there in one mobile which you carry? The lowest cost. Any idea? How many sensors are there in the mobile you carry in your pocket? Give me a number. Anybody? 6? Okay. Anybody else? Make a guess. It's just a number. You can guess from 1 to 1 trillion, any number. And I can't see you because of these lights are blinding. So I can only, I'm kind of posing as if I can see you, but I can't. That's the reality.
So
Any
no
guesses?
wrong answers.
Yeah, there are no wrong answers. Any guesses? 30, okay. Typically, depends on your mobile. The least amount of sensors in a smartphone are 16. The maximum can go about 40 odd, depending on a specialized mobile. Even if you buy a mobile of about, say, 8,000 bucks, there are about 16 16 sensors. The reason why I picked this is when we are talking about data, what is we need to understand the difference between a computing device and a mobile. At the end of the day, you call it as a computing device, am I right? Computing and communication device, if you look at mobile, is nothing but a computing and communication device. And if you are having a computing and communication device, the difference between any other computing and this is, number one, it is latched to an individual. It is able to bring the physical and digital world in one metamorphosis. And what it does to a marketer at that point in time is, you are able to use these sensors to the need you want to serve. And I'll tell you reason why I was using. For example, things which are important for me as a lender is when I am processing an application where the person is. Because of while for the word, I am in a lending business, the reality is I am in a business of collections. I only give money when I know that I will get it back. Am I right? Otherwise, if it was only a lending business, trust me, my job was the easiest one in the world. You can have $1 trillion and I can distribute it in less than a minute. It is a collections job, which means I need to know where the person is. From that moment, where the person is to his consumption habits, to the habits, to all different habits which a person is willingly being able to give. Things like, otherwise, I need to do a KYC, I need to know if the person is alive. Very simple thing. You are giving money, you want to know that you are giving to the right person who is living right now. So things like liveliness check, things like video KYC, all these things. So data from a application perspective, I think when I am processing an application, I do more than 230 odd data points in less than 30 seconds. And today that is possible because of what we think is 2 GB and 16 GB or 32 GB mobile. Just to put things in context, in 1999, 2000, my desktop used to have a 2 MB RAM and 512 MB of 512 MB, yes. 512 MB of a hard disk. Today, the mobile has more RAM than the hard disk it had. So that is a kind of a computing device you are roaming around with. Things like companies are using it in different formats. You can create offerings basis what the mobile signals you are getting. There are ride-hailing apps which are able to customize your pricing basis the battery health you have. There are travel apps, which will change the travel and shopping apps, which are able to change the pricing of an offering basis the device value you have. And as marketers, don't we all of us target? We have worked together. You would remember that we will say, oh, I only need Android users because of this is the persona of my user. I don't need iOS user because of these guys will probably not buy.
And I think that's what made Meta where it is today, right? Because taking on Google head on was one of the toughest jobs, and that's where all that classification kicked in. When we talk about mobile experience, I am typically curious and want to hear from the CMOs over here that we all get push notifications, we all get SMS, we get in-app. How do you decide which one at what moment?
So there are RFM metrics. See, you will start from, if I were to start a company today at zero, I would start with a very simple thing of a user persona. If he is a more digital user, if he is a digital native, he or she, I would typically look at if somebody has downloaded my app and been using it and opening it, I can time my notifications accordingly. So I'll go at a digital notification. इधर नहीं चला तो next door खटखटाते हैं चलो इसको WhatsApp भेज के देखते हैं इधर नहीं चला then so you depends on to I mean in my earlier organization I would depend more on WhatsApp in the current one I depend more on notifications so it depends I mean use
Also,
case
I
to use
think
case.
the fundamental remains the same. You have to know your consumers. Until you understand who's the consumer, what do they want, what's their usage, behavior patterns, what to communicate at what point in time, it remains a big question mark. So I think keeping that fundamentals right, and then a lot of time this data and data science, what are you doing to that data, how are you correlating, and then now there is far more possibilities with programmatics, wherein you can actually with AI stimulate a lot of things which actually and also simulate a lot of things to create messages which is highly contextual because you have patterns coming into play. Second thing I also feel from this is what's the way you can nurture that data even and more for better experiences and loyalty. I'll give you an example. We have got an app called M Partner. It's a customer app. It's a retailer app actually for doing booking, where people generally, we have got 70% transaction happening on that app. We started with only transaction and warranty claims, internal consumption. And later on, we saw that there is more than 40,000 retailers on that. Now, what do you do with that? Now we have started schemes, promotions, everything on that. And then we have gone into segmentation that now everyone should not get everything. You segment it. And further, now we have launched loyalty and reward programs with it. So I think this journey of notification and communication, you have to keep that in mind when you start from the beginning. Who is that person? What do you want to do with that data?
Yeah, definitely. Having separate cohorts, right? You can't spray and pray and hope that something sticks.
Something will happen.
Yeah.
Also, see, one, of course, customer affinity is important. If a customer is used to opening their, emails and they open your emails from, on a frequent basis, why not make that a medium of interaction? So customer affinity for sure plays a big role in terms of deciding what message to send on what medium. However, if I have to broadly classify, what we have done is SMS we've kept for very transactional communication. So when we have to send out a OTP, when we have to send out, confirmations on orders, deliveries, and so on and so forth, we utilize SMS for that. Notifications, which are push notifications, are usually used for more urgent, engaging kind of content, which is here and now rather than later, because that, kind of pushes you to click on the push notification and go into the app there and then rather than waiting for it later. Emails are more descriptive. Emails are more content heavy. You have a lot more to play in terms of, the kind of products that you can show, the story that you can tell, and so on and so forth. And then the in-app notifications or the in-app communication is usually either for gamification, which is to engage the customer more when they are on the platform, which is to increase their time, and at times to decrease the time that they are taking to convert. So how do you get them the offer at the right stage so that they are able to convert
So
easily?
have you guys built out or are working on, like, these are certain KPI metrics that you build out an algorithm that then measures brand loyalty or customer loyalty? Like, are you looking at that if a person, for instance, opens my app, does something for X amount of time, I put that person in a cohort? Like, how you basically question is how are you measuring customer loyalty
So I think
through mobile?
Prashant, that's a good question. And
Whenever Ashish smiles, I get nervous.
so actually that is also a challenge, right? While we spoke about all these push, email, and WhatsApp and everything. But the moment you overdo it, the customer is also going to block you. It is also going to, unsubscribe, or may just get so, irritated that they are not even going to come to the brand. So there has to be a very, very delicate balance, and you have to have contextual communication to them rather than spray and pray. However, we've seen clear patterns in terms of both retention as well as in terms of engagement, both from a purchase point of view as well as app open point of view. A challenge also is, how do you get the customer to retain your app? Because again, there are so many apps that the customer has on their mobile phones. How do you get the customer to retain it? So it is important when we see trends and we see patterns, we see that if there is a customer who makes their second, if they open the app 2 times or 3 times in a week's time, they are probably going to stick with the app much more than somebody who opens it just once in the week. Or to give you an example, somebody who has interacted with our push notifications and is engaged there has a much higher tendency of being a convert or a user to a customer for us when we look at it. So what we do is, how do we get these app-only features? How do we get them to? So there are certain, when you look at the graph, you will see there are clear, points that you can see where the drop-off happens. So after 7 days, for example, the maximum number of uninstalls happen for me. Now, what is the reason? Because most of the people, they would install the app, but once the order gets delivered, they think maybe I'll install it again when I have to order again. So if I can get that retention after 1 week, if I'm able to sustain that from 1 week to 15 days, then suddenly that customer becomes a much higher LTV customer for me.
Got it.
Yeah. So I was basically using the last word. And so I have stopped believing in loyalty. In the word where relationships are defined on apps.
Seriously.
Just let me complete. See, Nilima, in the word where your relationships are getting defined by the swipes, okay, let's not
Relationships, we are not
overwhelm.
swiping.
Let's not
Relationships are on loyalty only.
let's not overwhelm ourselves.
You're getting
as-
too many messages from Tinder, I think.
Ah. How do you know that? Okay. I think as marketers we have this habit of making ourselves feel a lot more important by these words of loyalty and things like that. I like to measure it in terms of LTVs. Let's keep business as business, and let's keep rest as what it is. Okay. Now, when we look at this business side of it, if it is LTV, then you can very clearly dissect your app analytics in 3 major buckets. One is my engagement bucket, whereas your open rates to DAUs, to MAUs, to time spent, to depth and whatever, XYZ. The second, very simple, is on the transactional, whereas for what transactions is he using for purchase, repurchase, applications, non-applications. And third is my performance, which is like how long does it take for a user, how many clicks to what has been the length of journey, time of journey, and XYZ. And these 3 parameters, the moment you look at it, then you can very clearly task define and run your business. Otherwise, I mean, if you are looking at a consumer who is kind of coming and your app is crashing every 3rd click, should you send him a link and say, hey, give me an NPS rating? And even if a consumer says 9, should you believe? You can go around tom-tomming in the entire country that I have an NPS of 87, but only about 1% of your consumers are able to transact. I mean, God help you. Versus, so let's not divert ourselves if we are talking about. And second point, today we live in the age of, I think, overload of data. Okay, we all live in the overload of data. When I started my career, we used to kind of run for data at that point in time. Today, we run away from data. Run away from data to insights. I think what is more important is insights. And I'll give you an example. It's an example from World War. How the insights and data can, and a lot of you might have heard this example. about these planes coming back. So there were these planes which were going to attack. When they used to come back, you can only analyze, and there were kind of bullet signs all over the place. And they called up these best of the minds to say that, hey, there are bullet signs, should be fortify these areas. And data suggests, here are the bullet hits coming in, fortify. The insight is that the planes which did not came were probably hit at the other places to fortify where the bullet has not hit. And that's the difference between data and insight. So don't get swept away in the myriad of data. Focus on that key insight about what is your business, who is your consumer. Because of we need to remember one thing. In today's age, do you have any guess how many average Indian, how many apps does a person has on his phone?
105.
More than 100.
It's more than that. It used to be in 2019, there used to be 54 apps. Today, an average person carries more than 130 plus apps. And how many apps does the person opens in a month? I'm not talking about DAUs, MAUs. Any number?
40, 42.
Sub 10, less than 10.
It is 17.
एक data
Including the system apps which are there. So whether phone, when you dial a phone, that's also an app. So from 130 to 17, that's the big difference. So if we are getting happy about that somebody has downloaded, you know where to go.
Okay, we are close to the time. So last final question for each of you. What are you seeing 2025 from a mobile experience brand loyalty perspective? Like, what are you guys working on, or what you think is exciting in the pipeline?
I'm seeing more AI coming from technology side of the business. More and more AI. I'm also seeing more and more hyper personalization and contextualization. I'm seeing technology, energy at least as an industry, is going more and more personalized from these kind of experiences which I talked about. Also bringing solutions which is far more connected through your phones is another things which I am seeing coming. And I mean in 2025 more such launches which will be seen, more connected devices, connected home, and then finally being monitored on your devices, which is more on management solutions than just actually pure consumption solutions. So that's another trend which I see. Another trend I see going forward in 2025 getting more and more stronger is these offline to online experiences getting into more tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, which is a very rapidly growing trend. Earlier it was confined to metros and tier 1 cities, but this year when I was looking my e-commerce sale, which is how many people bought from phones versus how many from laptops or devices, more and more mobile-oriented purchases are increasing. So that's something which I see as better experiences, more omni-channel experiences increasing.
Avi?
So I would summarize it as SIP, uh, not the other one, but simplicity. He just spoke about data overload, lot of information overload that is happening. How can customer journeys, how can everything become much more simpler in terms of interaction, in terms of engagement? How can the journeys become much more shorter? Everybody is pressed for time, and this goes both from a brand point of view as well as from a consumer's point of view. Second is integration. How can we integrate, and how will integration play a role in terms of letting different data points and different mediums, etc., talk to each other? There are multiple channels that a customer and a consumer is interacting with. How is it that it can all be brought into one window? The third one is personalization, which is an ongoing thing, and how is it that we can further move to personalization which is relevant and contextual? All of this enabled through AI.
Awesome. Good not to hear about mutual funds and SIP.
Okay, I have a little different take. I think in 2025, you will have a more restless, unforgiving, and private consumer. The case in point is that how many people are giving permissions for different things. Privacy is coming at the center stage whether you like it or not. So all these stories about marketers being able to scrape your devices, I think consumers are going to be more more and more unforgiving, which essentially means marketers, it's more clueless and more gaping marketer. That's how you look at. The third thing on devices also, a lot is going to change in next year and a half. Today, when you talk about mobile, you typically visualize a 6 by 2 inches, 6 by 3 inches kind of a screen. This screen is going to be 1 inch by 1 inch. How many of you have seen 1 inch by 1 inch screen? Anyone? Anyone uses 1 inch by 1 inch mobile screen? Anybody? You have wearable watches, am I right? What is that? It's a mobile device. You will have non-screen mobile device, which is your rings and all of that. And you will have transactions happening over there. People are increasingly moving away from being able to finger-based connection to being voice-based connection and gesture-based connections, which essentially means that marketers have to start thinking about or start planning about their journeys accordingly. So I think these are three things. So whether it is time, privacy, and friction.
So on data overload, I'm going to end with a funny story. I was having drinks with a friend of mine, and I saw this new gadget on his hand. It didn't look like a smartphone. It's the Whoop, right? It's a band, very classy. Gives you a ton of data on your mobile app. So I was like, how's this helping you? So he's like, you know what? I was sleeping really well, but once I put this on, every time I'm checking, and I'm not sleeping because I'm just checking when can I go to sleep. So that's where the data overload comes in, and that's something that I love the SIP, and I love what Nilima said, and I love what Ashish said. I think that's something that is going to win the game in 2025. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.